Thank you, and really grateful I have the opportunity to present today. I actually did change much of the presentation as the crisis has unfolded, because I know from working with all of our customers, managing through the COVID-19 crisis is incredibly challenging right now, both personally, of course, and also professionally. So I'm going to cover some thoughts from 4Q and then share our latest benchmarking research on how COVID is specifically impacting brands' business on Amazon. It's unique data that I haven't seen elsewhere, so hopefully everyone watching the video can get some insight on the current situation. I lead KRCG Council, which is a community of e-commerce professionals that we help through engaging research, events, and advisory work. If you're an e-commerce professional inside a brand and manufacturer that's doing business on Amazon and wish you had a resource to help you navigate what are a myriad number of strategic and tactical challenges, that's what we wake up every day trying to do. So if you'd like to learn more, just reach out to me and I'm happy to talk more about our service. So the gray portion of the columns here shows the gross merchandise value that Amazon did in 2018. And then the colored portions show the incremental growth in 2019. Really incredible when you think about the scale Amazon is operating at. It grew an incremental $19 billion in the fourth quarter alone. That growth is almost 3 times the size of Target's digital business. It's bigger than all of Walmart online grocery. Really incredible that it's been able to grow at that pace. Oops, let me go back. Now, Amazon is having an impact across retail. We started to see headline after headline come out since the end of last year. So many retailers are seeing distress, and this was all before the crisis. So Walmart changing some of its leadership team. Target had a bad fourth quarter, including digital. Brandless announced it was shutting down. Department stores, of course, struggling. And even some of the pure play retailers were struggling, like Wayfair and eBay. Not all of this, of course, is tied to Amazon, but certainly a lot of it is associated with Amazon's dominance. We put together this table to illustrate who were the winners and losers during the fourth quarter. And we don't have time necessarily to tackle all of these, but you'll see Amazon listed under the winners on the right side of the slide. A couple of things stood out to us on Amazon this holiday. First, manufacturers tend to go deeper on promotions on the site compared to prior years. They also spent more on advertising. Some participated in Amazon Live, which was featured very prominently on the site. Payback on Amazon Live has been somewhat mixed from our manufacturer partners' perspective. A lot of vendors are saying the production quality is generally quite good, but it is, relatively speaking, a pretty expensive program. Amazon also changed how they were delivering search results. So this year, if you search for an item after already being on the deals page, it only showed you the relevant deals for that search term. In the past, it would show you all search engine results. So this change was good if you had deals running, not so good if you did not. Amazon also let manufacturers feature more of their entire brands with multi-ASIN deals. So a lot of deals this past year took shoppers to brand pages where manufacturers could feature multiple ASINs. So Amazon is really trying to communicate that they're here to help build brands, and that's probably only partially true, but nonetheless, this tactic was new and manufacturers seemed to like it. On the 3P side, we heard many instances of 3P sellers having many of their products delisted between Thanksgiving and Christmas, only to see those items get added back onto the site on December 26th. Of course, very problematic if you were a seller and there wasn't much information shared or detail from Amazon on why this was happening. We think Amazon was trying to optimize their FC space for FBA items that were impacted by this. And even outside of that, we know they're hyper-focused on being price competitive. So they're willing to take action if they feel 3P sellers aren't offering competitive pricing. So all of that is great, of course, and in February, we updated our forecast for Amazon, expecting growth in 2020 to be similar to 2019 at about 18% year over year. And you can see the breakdown here between 1P sales in the gray and 3P sales in the blue. The positive growth being driven by its growing Prime membership base, its focus on increasing assortment and maintaining competitive prices, and it is also becoming a much more formidable competitor in online grocery. So in mid-February, we are forecasting incremental growth of around $60 billion in 2020. Then, of course, the COVID-19 crisis hit. Amazon, though, was one of the first to move quickly to secure more inventory across nearly all of its categories, both essential and non-essential categories. A lot of manufacturers saw significantly higher than normal orders hit in February, and they were telling us that really no other retailers at that time were taking that same aggressive approach. That, of course, changed quickly as the crisis worsened. This past week, beginning on March 16th, Amazon sent a note to 1P and FBA sellers that they would be suspending orders on non-essential items in order to make room for items like household and medical supplies. They're also moving quite aggressively too, looking to hire another 100,000 workers, probably many of which are likely going to be coming from restaurant and entertainment industries and other businesses like that are temporarily closed during the crisis. Amazon is well positioned to benefit to a degree from the crisis as consumers are shifting more of their purchasing to online at this time. So to try to better understand the situation, we benchmarked 68 manufacturers on March 17th and 18th across food, consumables, and hardlines categories to try to understand what the impact is and what types of opportunities and threats manufacturers are seeing. So first, a net positive number of manufacturers that we benchmarked are seeing the crisis positively impact their sales at Amazon during the month of March. Food and consumable companies in particular cite better than expected demand, while hardlines manufacturers had more mixed results. It's very early on in the crisis right now, and manufacturers, for the most part, haven't really changed their forecasts for Amazon for the rest of 2020, at least at this point. I think the biggest swing factor here is going to be in those grocery type categories, because you're seeing so many customers try out online grocery for the first time, and depending on how their experience goes, Amazon and its online grocery peers really do have a real shot at converting these into long-term customers. And to give you a sense, if you think about the experience in China, in January and February, their retail sales dropped approximately 20%, but their online sales only dropped about 3%. So even if the U.S. enters a recessionary environment and retail sales broadly are down pretty significantly, it doesn't necessarily mean that Amazon or other online retailers are going to see as dramatic of a fall. There's some reports that I've been reading out there that have been published that suggest e-commerce could easily reach 20% of total retail sales in the last couple of weeks of March and heading into April. So there's going to be a balance between how much does consumer demand fall off and what is the mix of online sales to brick and mortar sales. How does that change? And I think as we go through the next week, we're going to have a better understanding of what that mix shift ends up being. About 39% of manufacturers that we benchmarked in our study are having to allocate inventory across their different retail customers at this point. I think most manufacturers are trying to be fair in their allocation decisions. We do expect Amazon to get at least its fair share of inventory, and we actually suggest manufacturers overweight the inventory going there just because of how much shopping is migrating online at this point, like I was just discussing. And one additional point, we are getting some feedback from manufacturers that have seen a suspension in their orders, that their vendor managers are telling them to anticipate a lump sum reorder on April 5th or 6th to get back to normal inventory levels. At this stage, it's a little unclear to us how Amazon FCs could deal with that surge, and frankly, how manufacturers will react, especially those that are on allocation. But that's the messaging that Amazon's vendor managers are telling 1P and FBA sellers at this point. AMS opportunities are presenting themselves, but unequally. For advertisers on Amazon, you're of course balancing a lot of things right now, but mainly you need to figure out how your in-stock performance is performing and how that's going to perform over the next month, especially relative to competitors, and then determine what the implications are for your advertising spend. If you can stay in stock, you'll likely see CPCs decline and ROAS increase during this period of time. And then finally, on Prime Day, it's essentially too early for manufacturers to be adjusting their Prime Day plans. I think we need to get through the next couple of weeks, hopefully get some more clarity to the crisis and Amazon's plans for reordering, and then manufacturers will be able to determine the right level of focus that they put onto Prime Day this year. So that's our latest benchmark. We're going to be repeating that benchmark in 2 weeks to see how the data changes. I think Amazon was certainly well positioned pre-crisis based on some of that data that I showed you to begin with, coming off a really strong 2019. We do anticipate them seeing the largest dollar growth of any e-commerce retailer, and I think with the crisis, they're going to see at least a multi-month bump here as consumers shop online more, and potentially a longer-term structural increase depending on the degree to which they can keep consumers happy during what is, of course, a very stressful time. So I'll stop there and turn it back over to our host.
Thank you so much, Russ. That was so insightful. It's such crazy times for Amazon sellers, and having the information firsthand is so incredibly valuable. So with that said, next we're going to go to Chad Rubin of Scubana, focusing on an Amazon seller's guide to surviving COVID. Chad, to you.